Imagine waking up in the morning and before your feet even touch the floor, your mind has already whispered something heavy. Sui, today will be exhausting. Something will go wrong. I'm not ready. Sui. Nothing bad has happened yet. The day hasn't even started, and still the tone is set. Dark, defensive, cautious. Sui. Negative thinking rarely begins as a conscious choice. It begins as a pattern, quiet, repeated, reinforced, until one day it feels automatic. Sui. So how does this habit form? The first layer is biological. Sui. The human brain evolved for survival, not happiness. Thousands of years ago, missing a threat could mean death. Sui. Overreacting to a threat cost little. Underreacting could cost everything. As a result, the brain developed what psychologists call a negativity bias. Sui. We naturally pay more attention to danger, criticism, loss, and risk than to comfort or praise. Sui. If 10 people compliment you and one criticizes you, which one stays in your mind longer? The criticism. Sui. This bias is not a flaw, it is an ancient survival mechanism. But in modern life, where physical threats are rare and psychological threats are constant, this bias can distort perception. Sui. The second layer is emotional learning. Sui. When something painful happens, failure, rejection, embarrassment, the brain encodes the experience strongly. Emotion strengthens memory. Sui. If you were laughed at during a presentation, your brain doesn't just remember the event. It remembers the feeling, the shame, the tension, the racing heartbeat. Sui. To protect you, the brain creates a shortcut. Public speaking is dangerous. Sui. That shortcut becomes a thought. The thought becomes a belief. The belief becomes a habit. Sui. Over time, the mind begins predicting negative outcomes before they occur, not because it enjoys pessimism, but because it wants to prevent pain. Sui. The third layer is repetition. Sui. A single negative thought is harmless, but repeated thoughts carve neural pathways. The brain is plastic. It rewires itself based on usage. Sui. The more you think in a certain way, the easier that pathway becomes to access. Sui. Think of it like walking through grass. The first time, the path is unclear. Walk it daily, and a visible trail forms. Eventually, it becomes the default route. Sui. Negative thinking works the same way. I always mess things up. People don't really like me. Something bad will happen. Repeat it often enough, and the brain stops questioning it. It becomes familiar, and familiarity feels like truth. The fourth layer is environment. Sui. If you grow up in a household where criticism is constant, where fear dominates conversation, where mistakes are punished harshly, your internal dialogue will mirror that tone. Sui. Children internalize external voices. What was once a parent's voice becomes your own. Sui. Even social environments reinforce negativity. News headlines prioritize crisis. Social media amplifies comparison. Sui. Work culture rewards pointing out problems more than celebrating progress. Over time, your mental atmosphere becomes heavy, and you adapt to it. Sui. There is also a cognitive dimension. Negative thinking often operates through cognitive distortions. These are systematic thinking errors. Sui. Catastrophizing is expecting the worst possible outcome. Overgeneralization is turning one mistake into a lifelong pattern. Sui. Mind reading is assuming others think negatively about you without evidence. Sui. For example, you send a message and receive no reply for an hour, a neutral event. But the mind says, they're ignoring me. Sui. That assumption triggers emotion. The emotion reinforces the assumption. The loop continues. Sui. Importantly, negative thinking can create a false sense of control. If you expect the worst, you feel prepared. Sui. If you imagine failure, you believe you are protecting yourself from disappointment, but this protection is costly. Sui. Chronic negative thinking increases stress hormones. It narrows attention. It reduces creativity. Sui. It reduces risk tolerance. It affects sleep, relationships, and performance. What began as a defense mechanism becomes a limitation. Sui. There is another subtle factor. Identity. Why? At some point, negativity can become part of self-concept. I'm just a realist. I don't get my hopes up. I'm not the optimistic type. Sui. When negative thinking merges with identity, it feels stable, logical, mature, sui. But realism is not the same as pessimism. Realism evaluates evidence. Pessimism predicts failure without sufficient data. Sui. The habit forms gradually, through biology, through experience, through repetition, through environment, through distorted interpretation. Sui. And because it forms gradually, it often goes unnoticed. Sui. You don't wake up and decide to be negative. You adapt, you protect, you repeat. Suelves. The critical insight is this: negative thinking is learned, which means it can be unlearned. Sui. Awareness is the first disruption. Notice your automatic thoughts. Do they predict catastrophe? Do they assume rejection? Sui. Do they generalize small errors into large conclusions? Challenge the evidence. Ask, what else could be true? Mitsui. This simple question weakens rigid interpretation. Introduce cognitive flexibility. Sui. Replace absolute language like always and never with sometimes and this time. That shift alone reduces emotional intensity. Sui. Most importantly, understand that optimism does not mean ignoring problems. It means evaluating them proportionally. Sui. It means recognizing risk without exaggerating it. It means allowing possibility alongside caution. Sui. Your brain may default to scanning for danger. That is ancient wiring. But your conscious mind can guide interpretation. Sui. You are not your automatic thoughts. You are the observer of them. Sui. The habit of negative thinking forms in silence, repetition, and protection, but it can dissolve in awareness, questioning, and deliberate reframing. Sui. The mind learned the path. The mind can learn a new one. Sui. And the next time you wake up, before the whisper sets the tone, you might pause and choose differently. Sui.